Obama was a classic representation of that. He is somebody who clearly championed appeasement. He is somebody, if you look at all of his speeches, if you look at his address in Cairo or his previous statements overseas, what does he fundamentally advocate? What does he believe in? That we are not at war with radical Islam. That what we are basically fighting is not even terrorism. It's man-caused disaster, according to Janet Napolitano, the Homeland Secretary. We're not even fighting terrorists. It's some kind of it's sort of global warming, but through individuals. It's a man-caused disaster. And it's a refusal to face up to the evil and the threat that is now clearly gathering steam and has been gathering steam for the last several decades. This is the very same liberal media that did not tell you that Saddam Hussein sponsored terrorists all across the Middle East. He sponsored suicide bombers in the Palestinian territories. He had links to Hamas. He even had links to Hezbollah. And contrary to what they say, there were links between al-Qaeda and Saddam Hussein. Many senior al-Qaeda operatives were in Baghdad for years prior to the invasion in 2003. Anwar al-Salam, a prominent al-Qaeda affiliate, was known to be operating in northern Iraq, yet the media stayed silent. And even more than that, to me, this is the mother of all questions. We broke this story at the Washington Times, and the liberal media deliberately downplayed it. During the build-up to the 2003 invasion, you will remember, it went through the United Nations. It was the biggest mistake that George Bush made, to get Tony Blair on board. Bush went to the United Nations because Blair said he wanted some kind of a resolution from the UN. He wanted support from China and Russia and France. Of course, that turned out to be a huge waste of time. But more than that, it delayed the invasion by 6 months. And our American satellites captured photo after photo of truck convoys after truck convoys heading to the Syrian border. And what were in those truck convoys? That is the big question. And what sources in Syria began to slowly leak out was they were WMD components. Now, stand back and think about this for a second. Here you have a sadistic, totalitarian madman who we know used chemical weapons against the Kurds. We know liquidated 180,000 Kurds by using chemical and biological weapons. We know that this is a man who murdered nearly 1 million of his own citizens. We know that throughout the 1990s, he was developing a nuclear weapons program. Don't even take my word for it. Iraq's top nuclear physicist came out with a book called The Bomb in My Garden, where in that book, he said as the UN weapons inspectors were looking for components of our nuclear weapons program, I hid those components in my garden. I did not want the inspectors to find it out. So clearly, he was trying to build a nuclear bomb. Now, we thought he had weapons of mass destruction. The French thought, their intelligence services said he had weapons of mass destruction. The German intelligence services said he had weapons of mass destruction. The Israelis said he had weapons of mass destruction. The Russians said he had weapons of mass destruction. The only one who said he didn't have weapons of mass destruction was Saddam Hussein, who was an incorrigible, compulsive, pathological liar. Now, it doesn't stand to reason that somehow, Shazam, overnight, we invade, and suddenly there are no weapons of mass destruction. Now, here is the mother of all points that you will never hear from the liberal mainstream media. As we were slowly getting the insurgency under control, the Associated Press last summer wrote a story that was hardly commented on by almost anybody, and it was this. Enriched uranium. Tons of enriched uranium were shipped from Iraq into Canada. And this was done under the auspices of the American Navy. And the reason why the American military did not want it to be known that in fact they were gathering Saddam's enriched uranium was because they didn't want the insurgents and the terrorists to attack those facilities and those sites so they could steal the enriched uranium and potentially, God knows, God forbid, give it to an Al-Qaeda terrorist or some other jihadi to use as a dirty bomb. But Saddam Hussein had enriched uranium, and our military had to secretly transport it out of the Middle East. Well, enriched uranium is only good for one thing, and that is to build a nuclear bomb. So obviously Saddam Hussein had nuclear weapons. But again, the liberal media covered it up. So why is it that the liberal media constantly downplay the threat of terrorism? Forget the Air France thing. Right here on American soil, we know for a fact, intelligence agencies, law enforcement officials have said they know for a certifiable fact that Hezbollah terrorist cells have penetrated our southern border. They are now in New York. They are in Dearborn, Michigan. They are in Cleveland. They are in Chicago. They are laundering and raising money to send back to Hezbollah and other terrorist cells all across the Middle East. They are selling drugs to our kids on the street, poisoning our youth, and taking that money to buy weapons and explosives for terrorists back home. They are plotting to attack our schools, hospitals, and buildings as we speak. And yet you will not see one expose about this by the liberal media. In fact, you get the opposite. Everything is fine. All we need to do is apologize to the Muslim world. According to Evan Thomas from Newsweek, as he said on Friday, Obama is God. He is God. No, I think Evan Thomas has it wrong. He's Allah. He's got his multiculturalism mixed up. God is too Eurocentric. He's Allah. And so, my friends, this is what is going on. You have a liberal media that is complicit by hiding the facts from you, the American people, of the true nature of the threat that we face. And we have seen this before. We saw it in the 1960s and the 1970s, if you remember the Vietnam War. If we just left Vietnam, the New York Times and Walter Cronkite and all the big three TV media outlets told us, CBS, ABC, NBC, there would be peace in Vietnam. It would literally be utopia. The war would come to an end and the people of Vietnam could resume their happy lives. Well, what happened? There was a Holocaust in Southeast Asia. Literally millions of Vietnamese were sent onto the boats. They became boat people, driven out into the South China Sea. The ethnic Chinese were ethnically cleansed in one of the great genocides in Vietnam. It was a Holocaust that ensued. And that was followed up by Pol Pot and the Maoists in Cambodia, which killed nearly 2 million Cambodians. The declension of American power in Vietnam was a travesty for the people of Southeast Asia, yet they lied about that. We don't have an honest, independent media. We have a lying media. And this is why they target people like Michael Savage. And this is why he's on that ban in England, because he's the only one or one of the few people that's willing to stand up and speak up the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Savage Nation, this is your country. And it's time that we reclaimed it. We have to take it back. This is Jeff Kuhner, sitting in for the living legend Michael Savage on the Savage Nation. Savage.